You have found the perfect host family, but you are worried about the fact that they are not living in the city center but in a small town. Well, so this video will help you because based on my experience, I will talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of living in a small town. Hello everyone, it's me again. For the people who don't know me, I'm Benedetta, I'm from Italy, and last year I was an au pair for 8 months in Germany in a small town close to the city of Freiburg. My host family lived in this small town that was about 4,000 citizens, and it was close to Freiburg, like 30 minutes by train. But I can say that what I liked the most about living in a small town was the fact that in my case it was surrounded by nature, beautiful landscape, parks, and this was very useful because I remember that during my free time I enjoy going out for a walk, for a round, and I really remember that there was this part of my city where it was surrounded by vineyards, and it was really so beautiful and amazing walking there, watching the sunrise. And I also remember that during the lunch break before picking my host kid from school, I remember that also with other au pairs who lived in my city, we took the bike and we went there for lunch, organize a picnic, or for example also during summer after work we just went there for a walk or stay there, relax, enjoy the sunrise, and I really enjoyed those moments so much because it was a small city, but it was really so beautiful because there was a lot of nature, parks to go with friends, but also with my host kids during the whole year. Then another very important advantage of living in a small town is the fact that everything is really so close. About supermarket, the pharmacy, the post, and also the school of my host kid was really everything close, so I could go reach these places by walking or using the bike. And this was really something that I like, so that I didn't have, for example, to take the bus to go from one place to another. Another aspect that I really like about living in a small town was the fact that everyone know each other. So they knew that I was new in the town, I was from Italy, and that I was doing au pair in their city. So this happened, for example, that when I went outside to the post, to the bakery, for example, and at the beginning I had some difficulties with the German language, they were very friendly towards me because they helped me to improve also the language, and also sometimes happened that I didn't understand everything, but really they were so polite and they really helped me. And or for example, when I went out with the girls or when I had to pick her up from school, I remember that also I was outside with other moms and they start, for example, talking with me, asking me how was my day, how was doing here in Germany, and some, for example, asking me some information about Italy, where I'm from. And this was really something very important for me because I just had the feeling that I was not a foreigner in a city, but just I was taking part in their culture and in their community. Another aspect that I really like about living in a small town is that for sure you can understand their culture, their tradition 100%. Because I remember, for example, in my small town, they organize their Christmas market. They have their festivals, some events that were related only to my town. And this was really so beautiful because you see all local people enjoying these moments, and I also enjoyed that so much because it was something new for me that, for example, I've never seen in other regions in Germany, and also that I didn't have in Italy. And what I really also like so much was the fact that the neighbors were really friendly and nice towards me. I really felt like I was in Italy. They really talked to me a lot. I remember that also during summer, the neighbors where I lived, we organized like a barbecue in our street, and it was really so beautiful because there were all the families with their kids. We drank coffee in the afternoon, we ate cakes, and then for dinner there was the barbecue, and really was one of the most beautiful thing that I ever seen, and really I felt like I was at home. The only disadvantage that I found about living in a small town was only related to the public transportation. Because, for example, I was living 30 minutes by train from the main city, that was Freiburg. And I can say that if you are used, for example, to go out also during the week to meet your friends, for example, after work, for me, for example, was a little bit difficult because I had always to take the train and spend 30 minutes to go to the city and then 30 minutes to come back. So I can say that maybe this can be a disadvantage if during the week you, for example, always want to go out and meet your friends, and this also happens during weekends, especially during winter where outside it was so cold, because for example, the last train was at midnight. So if I wanted to enjoy the light night of Freiburg and went to a party maybe, and then I wanted to come back home late, maybe this was a little bit difficult. So I remember that I went to sleep, for example, to the house of another au pair who was living, for example, more in the city center. But I can say that this was the only disadvantage that I found about living in a small town. Another disadvantage of a small town maybe can happen that sometimes, you can find the main shops, like for example the pharmacy, supermarket, and a bakery in your town. But for example, if you want to find a big supermarket, more shops, for example, go for shopping, maybe I remember that, for example, in my town I had to take the bus to go to another city where I could find, for example, a shopping center or something like that. So if, for example, you want to enjoy in this way your free time, maybe just check before if in your town, for example, there are some shops, some bars, some bakeries, and something like that. So these are the only disadvantages that I found about living in a small town, but not very big disadvantage, I can say. So my recommendation is that not to exclude a host family because they don't live in the city center. What I recommend is maybe to ask to your host family is if they know, for example, that close or in your same town live other au pairs. Just for example, happened to me because mine was really a small town, but there were other two host families with other two au pairs. And this was really so beautiful because I remember that I met them during my free time, during the week, after dinner, for a coffee. So this can also be a very good advantage of living in a small town. Then another recommendation is that if you are so worried about your city where your host family lives, is to search your city on Google and maybe also find if there are some bus connection or train connection to the main cities, just to have an idea that, for example, you don't live very outside and you have to spend, for example, 2-3 hours to reach the main city. For example, mine it was very in a good position because I could reach Freiburg in 30 minutes by train or by car, 1 hour by train to another very big university city, and also I could reach Strasbourg in France, and Basel in Switzerland in 1 hour and a half of train. So you see, I lived in a small town, but I had a lot of good also train connection to a lot of big cities. So these are my advantages and disadvantages of living in a small town. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that it can be useful for you about choosing your host family. If you have other questions, please write them below in the comments and I will be so happy to answer to them. Ciao!